Comfort zone is a lie. Whenever we ask ourselves the question about why we are not succeeding in life, in academics, in anything, that is the answer that comes to life, that we are living in a comfort zone. But is that really true? Are we in a comfort zone, or are we actually just avoiding a bigger storm by persevering in a less fierce storm? March Comes In Like a Lion is one of the greatest things I have ever seen in my life in terms of relatability. Now, let me make it clear here that only season 1 of the anime is going to be discussed, which means only the first 22 episodes. So, please, no spoilers for season 2 in the comment section. Now, March Comes In Like a Lion, also called Sangotsu no Lion in Japan, is a story that follows Rei Kiriyama, a high schooler who happens to be a shogi player, a professional shogi player, and also happens to live alone. His story, the hardships that he faces, has faced up until this point perfectly encapsulate why comfort zone is a lie. In this video, we will go through all the dynamics that Kiriyama has, most of the relationships that he has in the story to best understand the life that he lives, starting with him and the crescent moon or the sisters. The contrast in Kiriyama's apartment and the sisters' house is clearly evident, which is also hammered through the symbol of the bridge that divides these two worlds. The House of the Three Sisters is like a reward to Kiriyama that you get after you work hard for something, something that only stays when you earn it. So the sisters' house has been earned through hardships. But when you look at Kiriyama's apartment and the House of Rewards, you could call it, it's clear you can see Kiriyama hasn't worked for it. He hasn't worked for that reward. It's pretty much a similar situation in real life when you get the award for a project, a group project you didn't work for, and get to enjoy all the laughter that comes after making a task possible. You get to enjoy all the success that comes after with the people. You get to enjoy all their joys and smile with them when you haven't worked hard for any of that. Even though you haven't worked hard for that project, the success that comes after this, the laughter that you have experienced now, is addicting. It's addicting. Hirayama knows that house, the sister's house, is actually addicting. That house is actually a representation of a kotatsu. Kotatsu means a feeling of warmth which is addicting as long as you are in it. It makes you fluffy and warm. Fluffy and warmth or happiness per se also has many different representations in this story. Feeling fluffy also means interest in one's world, in someone else's life, what they like. The example I gave earlier of a group project and the success that comes after it, it doesn't just bring one kind of achievement. Other people are then also interested in listening to your story as that success has brought more connections to you now, which automatically means a chance of meeting someone who takes interest in what you love and have worked hard for. The House of the Sisters shows this when they show interest in Shogi, in Kiriyama's life. His happiness, rather fluffiness, is clearly evident. But as I said before, he hasn't actually worked for it. He is just getting rewards for no effort made, apparently. Because if he did, his own apartment wouldn't be so empty. It would be like the sister's house. But is that really true in its entirety? The title of this video could also be interpreted as The Grind with Stagnation. If Kiriyama actually does work hard, why isn't his house like the sister's house? The grind with stagnation means not moving forward but not losing either. In a way, you could say that when we talk about comfort zone, it's not getting defeated more that determines failure, but the victories that you are racking up every day of your life, if they increase, that's what determines failure, which may come off as the same thing, but let me explain with an example. For example, an exam of 15 marks, you always get 7.5 or 8. You barely pass. You don't want this victory to go. You don't want to lower your victories. I mean, you are losing in a way, you are not winning as much as you could. You are not getting 13, 14, 15 marks, but you aren't trying to increase your scope of victory. You aren't trying to increase your victories or take a chance where you can get defeated more. The realization in this is that you get defeated every day, all right? You don't get the success that you can get. But the point is, whenever you get marks lower than 7.5 or 8, whenever you don't pass, whenever the victory that you have always had, whenever that gets lesser, that's what determines failure to you. Because in your comfort zone, the constant success or the constant way of life that you experience, if that goes away, that is what determines failure in comfort zone. That's when you feel like, oh, I have lost. I am in a peril right now. So, how does this work actually in Kiriyama's life? Kiriyama and his constant stagnation in C1 and not getting promoted, to him, he has enough victories, and he only tries enough to not lose more. He only tries when he doesn't want to lose more than he already has. He doesn't want to lessen his victories, but he doesn't want to increase them either. Kiriyama also does a thing we all do in our comfort zones. He tries to do something to get out of it. He chooses high school. Kiriyama understands what his life is, but he does at least want a memory of not running away, of having tried to make his life better, of having tried to come out of his comfort zone, a memory of giving a harder life a try, which is all he does in the first season, really, in terms of high school. All of Kiriyama's action are beautifully symbolized with a sense of him swimming through a storm, but only to familiar islands. He is constantly suffering in the storm. He is constantly facing challenges in the storm, but he's only going to a familiar island where he knows what things are like. So he is suffering, but he's suffering only to get to familiar places, which is his house, his home, his daily life. So you can't actually say he is in his comfort zone, considering he tries actually equally as hard to stay in his comfort zone as someone else would to get out of it. And the high school thing is just something that he has taken the first step towards. You can't actually count it as another island considering he hasn't actually tried. He is going to try in season 2, hopefully, but he hasn't actually taken those steps. He has just opened a door, really. The proof of Kiriyama's suffering, the proof of Kiriyama's hard work, even in his comfort zone. People say you can't inspire anyone in your comfort zone, but Kiriyama apparently does. Hina's crush. He inspires him. This also shows one more quality about comfort zone, that whoever you are, if you're in your comfort zone and however weak you are always better than someone else. You can always be an inspiration, a building block for someone else. Which brings us to another thing. What does comfort zone also mean? Which is merely existing. Comfort zone also means merely existing, not really trying to do anything productive in life. Because when you merely exist, you don't hurt anyone, you can't hurt anyone, you don't interact with people, you don't try to get better. When you don't try to get better, you obviously don't hurt anyone's feelings, anyone else's, by surpassing them. But is that also really true? Because these words, I think, perfectly encapsulate what I'm trying to say here. Even when you live your life the same way, the easy way, you disappoint people, you hurt them. Doing even the bare minimum is survival, grasp for it. Like a beast clinging to life upon the expense of others' misery. Mere existence is enough to hurt. And let me explain all of what I have said just now. That wasn't just poetic bickering. I wasn't trying to sound like a genius. I actually, wrote those things when I was watching the season. Everyone, I think almost everyone at least, knows it's impossible not to hurt anyone in your life. It's impossible to do that. It's impossible, but is it possible to not beat anyone ever in your life, not surpass anyone, not make them feel like inferior to you, so that they don't taste defeat at your hands? No, it isn't possible. In fact, it is shown through Rei's matches versus Matsunaga and Rei versus Yasui. Versus Matsunaga, the old man, Rei hasn't lost, of course, but he doesn't hurt Matsunaga. But against Yasui, that changes. The script is flipped. Rei, just as his adopted sister told him, ruined someone's day, an important day, and defeated them on that day when they most didn't want to be defeated. Ray, without any intention, ends up hurting someone else in his comfort zone, which proves even in your comfort zone, hurting someone, not hurting someone, is impossible. Again, repeating some things, while this match versus Yasui shows two things. One, it's impossible not to hurt someone. And second, even in your comfort zone, you are a beast, actually. You are a beast that clinges on to life at the expense of others' misery. Doing even the bare minimum of what you think is possible is survival. Grasp for it. Because if it wasn't survival, what happened to Yasui against Kiriyama wouldn't happen. But this is not the only way you can hurt someone by merely existing. By merely existing, by just being in your comfort zone, by not trying to do anything, you also hurt the people who care. Right after the Yasui game, Ray resigns himself, not going outside, not bothering anyone, which was what he normally also did throughout the entirety of the season, at least until that point, even when he is in terrible pain. But that does end up hurting the sisters, those who care about him. Even though Ray hasn't made a connection with them, per se, like in terms of what Hayashida sensei, Ray's teacher, tells him, a connection is that you rely on others, they will rely on you. That's how you become dependable. Which is also what Ray really wants to become. He wants to become dependable. So that's, I think, going to get a lot more attention in season two. So even though the connection with the sisters isn't really a connection of mutual dependency, there is still care there, of course. And Ray hurts them by merely trying to exist. So until now, we have seen how horrible Ray's life is. It isn't a comfort zone by any means, because in your comfort zone you hurt someone by defeating them. It's bizarre really, but in your comfort zone, when you are at your lowest or when you are not improving at anything, you still hurt someone by beating them, and you hurt people who care about you, and you yourself suffer. Your life is gloomy. You don't get the rewards that other people get after trying hard. So comfort zone isn't by any means something that's really easy to be in. But another amazing concept that's explored through Kiriyama is the concept of slacking off in your comfort zone against the hurdles, the everyday hurdles that you face in your comfort zone. Let me explain. In your comfort zone, every time you face hurdles, but they are normal ones, the normal obstacles. You get by them easily. They are nothing to be noticed. They are nothing to be worried about. But through Kiriyama versus Shimada game, Shimada, an amazing character, one of my favorite characters in the series, the concept of underestimation and why that is bad, even in your comfort zone, is explored. And let me mention this real quick. The voice actors in this story, Chef's Kiss. It's been a long time since I have experienced a series with characters that you can look up to, that give you a feeling of wisdom. I mean, after the perverted teachers in Onizuka and Gans, oh my god, Gans. Characters like Hayashida Sensei and Shimada have been a breath of fresh air. Not saying that I didn't like Gans or Onizuka, both of them in my top 10 mangas of all time. Just putting that out there, but it's been a long time since I have experienced characters who I could look up to. And I was beginning to think that Japanese society is a sick society after seeing all those weird mangas. But this March Comes in Like a Lion has brought me back to feeling good about Japan. Now, getting on with the Rei versus Shimada game and the concept of slacking off. Shimada is a character who is a personification of a forest in the story. And as we go on, we see how a plant becomes a forest that Shimada is. But Shimada's character is not what we are discussing here particularly. In our comfort zone, when we finally go challenge something, in Rei's case, he wants to challenge Goto. He wants to challenge something bigger than his normal comfort zone, than he does in his usual comfort zone. We often neglect the everyday hurdles that come in our life. Rei also neglects Shimada because Shimada has no presence, or rather, their presence is not what stands out anymore, or to them, or to us at least. Rei unintentionally looks down on Shimada, and the reason that he looks down on Shimada is Shimada's long drawn out battles. Shimada is a man for Ray who doesn't play to win necessarily, but more so to not lose. That's what Ray thinks of Shimada. With people like that, it's a drawn out battle normally. That's where Ray goes wrong. Shimada's character is a personification of a forest, the slow growth of a tree which turns into a forest which earlier overlooked, which earlier you would have not noticed, suddenly becomes a great hurdle. Mr. Shimada is basically a quality neglected in everyday life, a hurdle neglected in everyday life. It's a hurdle to which you lose because it got bigger or you just got weaker or both. In Ray's case, is both. He loses because Shimada is stronger, and he also loses because he himself is weaker, has gotten weaker. And Ray actually doesn't even realize it until Shimada, in Nikaido's words, splits his head open, makes him see even in your comfort zone a great hurdle which you don't consider a hurdle can come and knock you off. So the everyday hurdle that Shimada is has won against Ray in his comfort zone, in his so-called comfort zone. I have been talking about in this video that comfort zone is a lie, and it is a lie. You suffer in your comfort zone. Really, you don't really live an easy life. You just live an easy life compared to other people's lives, and that's what we will get to next. Through Shimada, Ray learns many things. As Hayashida Sensei puts it, that to become reliable, you have to rely on others first. Now, that can be interpreted in many different ways. One, in which the show literally tells us, is that one, you need to have something to steal from the other person or something to ask in return. That's how a connection is made. Reliability is achieved, but just asking isn't enough. You have to withstand the other person's life, their thought process, or rather, putting it into a phrase that the show literally uses as a title of their episode, you have to hang on to their torrent, the torrent of thought. You have to withstand other people's thoughts, their life, their everyday problems. You have to communicate with them to steal something off of them, to be reliable, to make a connection with them, or to ask something in return after you have given something to them. That's how a connection is made, and that's the difficulty level is basically this. You have to withstand their torrent of thought. The things that they have been thinking, the things that they have been dealing with, you have to be there together with them. That's how reliability is achieved. But you also need an opening to be able to ask something of anyone, to steal something of anyone, which for Kiriyama is shogi. Shogi is what allows Kiriyama the pleasure to have someone sit next to him. And when you do make a connection, you just don't learn from them, but indirectly through others as well. You learn how to be more mature. After Kiriyama makes a connection with, Shimada, he learns from Nikaido how to return the favors Shimada has given to them, which isn't materialistic. You just need to be there to return that. You have stolen something off of them, their torrent of thought. You have stolen things that you find valuable, that you find that can make you better. Now, how do you return it? You also learn how to return things when you make a connection with anyone. And you don't necessarily learn that from them, you indirectly learn it from others. And after all this hard earning Kiriyama does, after all this torrent of thought he withstands, he finds himself worthy enough to meet the sisters, to willingly go to them. He has worked hard for the reward this time, the reward that is their house, the crescent moon, the kotatsu, their shop. He now realizes that he has worked hard enough for that before he avoided their house, because upon returning to his own apartment, to his house, even the silence made a noise, which emphasizes how lonely he was compared to that kotatsu type house. But now he doesn't have to feel that way, because he can willingly go to their house, because he thinks he is worthy enough to earn the reward. Through Shimada, he has come to realize this simple fact, that a bigger storm awaits on the other island, on the other side. Until now, what he has been dealing through is per se his comfort zone, but has been a storm all along that has been pushing him and that has been making him put in his best work. But to go to the other island, he has to surpass that, which Shimada shows him, and it's done beautifully well. Shimada and Kiriyama is one of the best dynamics I have seen in some time. Now, the one thing I also noticed about the bigger storm is how you feel alive in that. In the current storm that Kiriyama is, there are many points in the story when he feels dead. He feels nothing. He feels like he isn't alive anymore. But when we look at Shimada, the greater hurdles that he is facing, the greater storms that he is going through, he feels alive in those storms. And Kiriyama sees it. He sees just how alive you can become when you take on a bigger challenge. When you take on a bigger challenge that you don't have to just put your best towards, but more than that. The feeling of being alive is only achieved when you push yourself to the other island, to the unknown, to the unfamiliar. When you go out of your so called comfort zone, where you also suffer, by the way, but you will suffer more on the other side, but you will also feel alive, which you don't on this side of the river. But the acknowledgement of the current storm that you are facing is also really important. Someone who acknowledges you that you did good, in fact, because comfort zone does require your best effort. The other side of the storm just requires more than that, which is why one of the most important things in the story is Hayashida sensei acknowledging Rei, you did good. Because comfort zone one is a lie, and second, you are still better than many others. Again, an important part of the story of showing that even though Shimada's storm is more fierce than the one Rei is facing, Ray should still be told that he did good, that he did well, because even in his comfort zone, your comfort zone does require your best effort. Just as I mentioned, the other storm just requires more. Some other parts of the story that I want to point out is the Shimada versus Goto game, where through Goto, two different perspectives on defeat are shown. That the action of thinking what to say after your defeat is done, after you have accepted your defeat, can be interpreted as either an excuse or as an honorable way to accept defeat. Goto is also an interesting character that I'm interested in, and I think we will get more on him in season 2. And Shimada, the personification of a forest who provides for his village, is, man, an amazing metaphor. Shimada isn't a forest where you feel isolated, but where you feel full of life and connection. He is someone who connects, not isolate. He is someone who provides. Well, after all this, the second term begins. Of course, I didn't elaborate on Ray's sister and his family, but I think that should be left with season 2 video. That's where that story arc I think will cook. That's where I think that needs to be addressed. I don't think this video needs that storyline right now. So, top 5 characters: Rei, Hayashida, Shimada, Nikaido, and the entire Crescent Moon shop. I know I cheated, but I can't leave out any of them. So that's all for this one. I hope it wasn't messy and was easy to understand. This is, analysis videos a new thing to me, and I'm sorry if I wasn't able to get my point across. And like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope I will see you next time.